Welcome back to the Dershow. Obviously, breaking news today: Hunter Biden has made a deal to plead guilty to two counts of filing taxes late, and one count relating to the failure to put down his drug use in a gun application. Um, this may surprise some people. But the sentences for these two misdemeanors and one offense are just about right. That's what most people would get for filing taxes late, even though technically it could be called a felony. Almost nobody is ever prosecuted for a felony for filing their taxes late. In fact, many people are not prosecuted at all for filing their taxes late. They're just given fines. But he was indicted and he made a deal. And as far as the statement on the form, nobody would ever have discovered a false statement on a gun form that's probably tucked away somewhere unless it was part of a kind of tit for tat, Biden Trump dispute. As usual, I predicted this exactly right. I wrote in columns and I said on the air that shortly after Trump was indicted federally, we would see an indictment against Hunter Biden. It would be for minor crimes, and then Democrats and the administration will say, "See, we're even-handed. We prosecute everybody. We prosecuted the son of the president, and we prosecuted the former president, and the man running to be future president." Well, not quite the same. Now, there's a little bit of a dispute about this deal. The prosecution has suggested that the investigation may not be completely over, and the defense has said categorically, it's over. This is it. No more investigations. And that is a cause of concern. Now, look, I don't know what was on that laptop, and I don't know what's on the tapes that allegedly they have, 17 or so with Hunter Biden and a couple maybe with Joe Biden. I don't know the facts. Um, and I hope there is nothing incriminating on them. I don't like people being criminally prosecuted. I certainly don't like the weaponization of the criminal justice system against people of either party. But if there is anything to it, there's certainly a lot of smoke. But, the smoke has been generated largely by the media and by partisans. So one has to look with at least some suspicion on the smoke. Maybe the smoke is arson. Maybe it's a real fire. I don't know the answer to that question. I do know the answer to this question, and that is there's no equivalency between charging the son of the president with two misdemeanors and one diversion offense, and compared to charging the former president and future uh, presidential candidate Donald Trump with serious felonies carrying, years and years and years of imprisonment. If Hunter Biden was indicted essentially to show equality, it failed. But the worst issue is the investigation over? And if there was a thorough investigation and it proved that all these charges about the laptop and about Burisma and about these tapes are false, hey, let the chips fall where they may. That's the right result. On the other hand, if there's more to it, I'd like to know that. Now, no, the hard question is this. This is the result of a special prosecutor appointed by Donald Trump, a special prosecutor. And sometimes special prosecutors file reports. They always file reports to the attorney general. The question is, do you make the reports public? In this case, the reports probably should be made public because the public is very suspicious of what happened to the laptop, what happened to Burisma. If there was a thorough investigation and it proved there was nothing to it, we should know that. If there was something to it, but not enough for a criminal prosecution, we should know that. This is not the normal case where there's an investigation conducted in private and the Justice Department's policy is they just either announce an indictment or no indictment, or they say nothing. This is not that kind of case. This is a case involving the son of the president of the United States. It's a case involving a special prosecutor. It's a case involving a long, long, long investigation. It's a case involving some facts that we know are true. We know there's a laptop, and we have some information about what might be on that laptop. And we know that there are some facts that are undisputed about Burisma and about the relationship between both Hunter Biden and President Biden, in terms of his statement when he was vice president that you better fire the prosecutor, you're not going to get the money. Uh, Enough there to warrant a report putting to rest what the facts are, because there's going to be concern otherwise. It's going to not be good for the Bidens, certainly, because there's always going to be the aura of suspicion. Well, it won't be good for them if they're innocent. If they're not innocent, it's very good for them. And I don't know the answer to that question. The presumption of innocence, people mistake that for believing that's a presumption that exists in the world. No, it doesn't exist in the world. The presumption of innocence only applies to a person who is on trial, and he must be presumed innocent by the jury and by the judge. By the way, judges presume them guilty all the time because they deny them bail. So people are denied bail just based on an indictment. That has to be a presumption of guilt. The presumption of innocence only means that the jury will be instructed that in considering the evidence against this defendant at this trial, you must not consider the indictment as evidence of guilt. You must presume him innocent until and unless there's sufficient evidence to prove his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. So many people misunderstand the presumption of innocence. It does not apply to the media. It does not apply to historians. It doesn't apply to you and me. People can presume me guilty all they want of whatever crimes they want. I am not blanketed by a presumption of innocence, nor are you. I would be if I were being tried in court. So let's get that clear. You as a citizen are entitled to presume anything you want about Hunter Biden, about Joe Biden, about Donald Trump, about Hillary Clinton, about anybody else, as long as you're not the judge giving an instruction to the jury in a criminal case. So that has to be clear, because that's widely, widely misunderstood. Look, maybe there should be a general presumption of innocence in life. That's a good idea, but that's not what the law today provides. And so we'll see. We'll wait and see if there's a further investigation, if there's further information, if there is further details coming out of the Justice Department. I just don't know. I don't know how that's going to work. But I can tell you a few things. Again, one, not going to satisfy Republicans, and it probably won't satisfy some independents. They will probably say to themselves, look, we've been hearing so much about Burisma, about the laptop, about all of that. Well, what's going on? Why do they indict him only for two very minor tax charges, which, as I said, most people aren't even indicted for those charges. If you file your taxes late, you usually get a fine. Now, these are two, and they were very late, and there were other factors. And not putting a drug addiction on a gun license. Look, he's punished for that. He even though he's in a diversion program, he can never again own a gun. And for those of you who are strong believers in the right to own guns, that's a serious punishment. So, people on the right, the extreme right particularly, are going to have a hard time complaining about this, because they're going to have to say, oh my God, they took away his guns. That's really, really serious stuff. Whereas people on the left will say, they took away his guns, big deal. Nobody should have guns anyway. But so, look, people are not entirely consistent about their attitudes. It's the names of the people that matter more than anything. Lo tachir ponim, do not recognize faces, says the Bible. Do not do justice based on whether your name is Biden or Trump or Hillary Clinton or anybody else. Do justice with a blindfold based on what the facts are. So my conclusion is that for the crimes for which he was charged in this plea bargain, 2 counts of filing taxes late, 1 count of not including drug addiction in his application for a gun. By the way, that's a much more serious charge, because, you shouldn't have a gun if you're drug addled and cocaine addict. And so I think it's really important that we enforce those laws. But in general, the sentences, which are prison sentences, probation on 2, and a diversion program on the other, is fair. That sentence is fair based on the charges. What remains to be seen is whether or not the charges themselves are fair based on the totality of the evidence. And I do not know the answer to that. And the defense lawyer saying this is all behind us doesn't satisfy me and shouldn't satisfy you. And the statement, the vague, ambiguous statement of the Justice Department, basically everything's always open for further investigation, shouldn't satisfy either. I think that this is a case where there should be a report, like the Durham report, like the other reports, the Mueller report. We're entitled to see where our money was spent on years and years of investigation, especially since we know certain facts. And those facts are not necessarily, by their terms, exculpatory. They may not be inculpatory, but they're not exculpatory. It's not exculpatory that he owned a laptop that contains information of the kind that we hear may be honored. It's not exculpatory for a president of the United States when he was vice president to have said to leaders in Ukraine that you're not going to get the money unless you fire the prosecutor who happens to be investigating Burisma. Maybe there's an explanation. I hope there is. I like Joe Biden and I voted for him. So I'm hoping there's an explanation, but I'm neutral and objective enough to want to see it. I want to see what it is. I want to see what the evidence is. I mean, we hear now about these tape recordings. Everybody not everybody, but a lot of people on the right act as if A, we know for sure there are tape recordings. B, they're incriminating. C, they're incriminating not only against Hunter Biden, but against Joe Biden. I want to see the evidence. Where's the beef? I want to hear the tapes. Apparently, some people in Congress have seen transcripts of the tapes, but they haven't told us what's in them. And again, I don't want to hear or see the tapes through the prism of members of Congress, as honest as they might be. I would like to hear the tape with my own ears. I'd like to see if there's a videotape with my own eyes. I haven't heard about any videotapes, but who knows? I've had experience with tape recordings in Ukraine. I represented the president of Ukraine, Kuchma, and they thought cold on a murder charge. They had a very incriminating tape. Turned out it was made up. It was, to use the current expression, fake news. They spliced it, turned words around. It's almost as bad as what CNN did with me, leaving out the words illegal, unlawful, corrupt, and then having people say on national television, oh my God, Dershowitz thinks even if you're illegal, unlawful, and corrupt, you can't be impeached. Exactly the opposite of what I said. Well, they did that in Ukraine. We caught him. And my client got acquitted after I got threatened by people. We're not sure from who, whether Ukraine or from Russia, but I had to leave in a big hurry. I was rushed to the airport and put on the first plane out. It didn't matter where it was going. Fortunately, it was going to, I think, Frankfurt. So I was able to get out of Ukraine. I haven't gone back. Not a legal system that necessarily ranks among the best in the world. And, we were worried in the Ukraine case that the KGB may have had a hand in doctoring the tape. KGB has new initials now, which I never know, with an S or a B or something like that. But it's the old KGB, which used to have as his head a guy named Vladimir Putin. So there's close connection between Russian intelligence and the head of Russia. And I want to know also. I've never heard a good explanation from Joe Biden about why he threatened to withhold money from Ukraine unless they fired a prosecutor. What was his business? I guess the explanation is he believed, and probably American intelligence believed, that the prosecutor was corrupt and they were just doing it for good governance. But when part of the investigation involves a company on which your son is making money, a little bit of explanation may be necessary, and one hopes maybe that in the report, if there is a report, there will be some investigation. So The deal today doesn't end the matter. It may end it as a legal matter. It may end it as a court matter, a judicial matter, but it doesn't end it in the court of public opinion. There are still some unresolved issues, some unanswered questions, and some threads. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes. But again, I predicted it. Exactly right. I said that there would be indictments. They would come shortly after the Trump indictments, and they would involve the taxes and the gun, and they would not involve any of the other issues that the media and Republicans want to see investigated. Maybe my prediction will turn out to be wrong over time, and maybe there'll be new indictments. It doesn't seem that way. And certainly the defense attorney, who's apparently a very able defense attorney, basically said publicly that the investigation is over. That's it. That's the deal. And maybe it is. As a defense attorney, I understand making that statement. Sometimes you want to make a self-fulfilling prophecy, and maybe it's something he's been told, but the Justice Department has not confirmed exactly that description of the circumstances. So, open mind. You can have your presumption of guilt, presumption of innocence, presumption of neutrality, which I think is probably the best thing. Open mind. Wait till you see the evidence. That, to me, is the best presumption we can have in a democracy. So let's see about some letters. Oh, this is great. Why isn't this man heard by 330 million people? I'm happy to be heard by the tens of thousands that listen to the podcast. I appreciate that. And here's thanks to Elon, the son of Dersh, for bringing the world your father. Thank you, Elon, and thank you for making that nice comment. Okay, so I asked the question in the last show, what will your children think 100 years from now? And I thought maybe the answer would be eating animals. I got none of that, but here's one that I got, which got from more than one person. Okay. 100 years from now, people will look back on American abortion as unimaginable. People will look back and wonder how good people like Alan Dershowitz could ever have supported such a moral abomination. Dershowitz's great-great-grandchildren will think about Dershowitz the same way that Dershowitz now thinks about Gertrude Stein. Oh, that would be horrible and awful. As you know, my views on abortion are very, very nuanced and very calibrated and very much in a compromise mode. Extreme anti-abortionists don't like what I have to say, and extreme pro-abortionists don't like what I have to say. I wrote about it in my new book called Dershowitz on Killing, How the Law Decides Who Shall Live and Who Shall Die. The first chapter in the book is all about abortion. And I basically say, look, I don't believe in late-term abortion unless it's necessary to save the life or physical health of the mother. But I believe very much in early abortion. That is abortion that, to my mind, is the equivalent of birth control, morning after pills, month after pills, that kind of thing. But I don't see myself as an extremist on abortion on either side. I was also an opponent of Roe versus Wade when it was first decided. I didn't see in the Constitution either a right to life for the fetus or a right to abort for the mother. I thought that was much more appropriately a legislative matter. And the Supreme Court ruled that it was not, and that it was a constitutional matter. Having done that for 50 years, I was also opposed to overruling Roe versus Wade. I believe you should overrule some decisions, but this one was too close. Look, Americans are so deeply divided over abortion. Abortion is so different, for example, than desegregation. When Brown versus Board of Education was decided back in 1954, when I was like 15, 16 years old, very many Americans opposed it, particularly in the South. Today, almost nobody opposes it because it was wrong. And we knew that. Whereas abortion, decided in 1973, I don't think it changed very many minds because abortion is a close moral question. If you were brought up to believe the fetus is a human being with a soul, then you're killing it. I was not brought up that way. You know, in the Jewish religion, life begins when your last kid graduates medical school. Joke, sorry, stereotype. I apologize, but that's a joke that's very common in the Jewish community. But we don't mock people who believe that life begins at the conception or life begins in the first month. That's a plausible view. Nobody can answer. It's not a medical question. It's a religious question, maybe a moral question, but it's a question that people have very strong views about, and therefore it won't change people's minds, and it will continue to be that way. Now, one of the big issues is whether the Constitution will be seen by those who wanted to overrule versus Wade as having a right to life in the Constitution, which would mean that no state could permit abortion. I don't think the court will go that far. I'm not sure how they're going to get around it. But if they did, it would be the greatest gift to the Democrats, because the vast majority of Americans believe that a woman should have the right to have an abortion in the early stages of pregnancy. The numbers obviously dip as you get further and further into the pregnancy. But I don't think that 100 years from now, people will look back at those of us who favored some kind of abortion as if we were Gertrude Stein, or as if we were owners of enslaved people. I just don't think we're going to see the same moral condemnation. But I'm not going to be around to determine that. So if any of you are really young, maybe you will be. Today, anybody born today has a good chance of living to 100. Okay. Professor Judge Eileen Cannon has been named as the presiding judge in the Trump documents case. If she is the named judge, why is Judge Bruce Reinhardt making rulings on the release of information to the press and to conditions under which Trump can view classified material? He's the magistrate judge. We have a tripartite, multi-partite system in America. It used to be only had district court judges, court of appeals judges, Supreme Court justices, but district court judges got so busy. Supreme Court justices aren't particularly busy, but district court judges are very busy. So Congress enacted statutes creating a post of magistrate judge. They're not Article III judges. They're not confirmed by the Senate in the way that Article III judges, full judges, are confirmed by the Senate. But they do a lot of the jobs that judges do, particularly discovery, pretrial, calendaring, and all that. And Reinhardt is thought to be one of the better magistrates in South Florida. So he's doing a lot of those jobs. Okay, Professor, the DOJ has pierced attorney-client privilege of Donald Trump on several occasions, once when they raided Michael Cohen's office, and again when the judge made Trump's lawyers testify to a grand jury. Can the average citizen have any confidence that whatever they tell their lawyer will remain confidential in the world we now live in? A great question. The answer is no. The answer is no. There are so many exceptions to the lawyer-client privilege that I have to warn my clients. That's why I don't take notes when I interview clients. I fortunately have a good memory, but I don't want to be subpoenaed for my notes. And if I'm subpoenaed and testify in front of a grand jury, I won't disclose what a client told me. But today there are so many exceptions. The worst is this taint team. If they seize materials on a search warrant, and that includes lawyer-client privilege material, it could say right on the top, just the way some documents say classified, others say lawyer-client privileged information. According to the courts today, the Justice Department can review those documents. They have a taint team, a special team. They promise they won't talk to the prosecutorial team, but a wink and a nod over lunch, who knows? So I don't trust the taint team concept, and that's why I actually favored Judge Cannon's ruling creating a special master to look over Trump's material that included lawyer-client classified material. It was overruled by the 11th Circuit. I've been arguing for 30 years that the taint team concept is wrong. I still think it's wrong. I'm involved in an exchange of communications with a close friend of mine. He takes the opposite view, and we've been fighting about that, but I think I'm right. Okay. Professor, according to the IRS Crimes Handbook, any willful attempt to evade or defeat federal taxes is a felony. Hunter Biden's tax crimes, however, have been pled down to a misdemeanor, and his felony gun charge dropped with a diversion program. Is this not evidence of a two-tier justice system? No, it's not. That's exactly the way most people would be treated if their names weren't Biden. And if these were the only crimes, I would say, no, it's not evidence of a two-tier system. It's pretty good evidence of a one-tier system. What may be evidence of a two-tier system is if, in fact, there are other factors that are not being investigated, or after being investigated are not being prosecuted, even though the evidence of crimes is there. So no, the sentences itself, meted out pursuant to the plea bargain, is relatively routine, reflects a good defense lawyer who I commend for having made the deal. If, in fact, there is more to it, then we'll have to see. But right now, we don't have enough evidence of that. Help. How can we demand the trial be televised? What can we do? What actions can we take? Who can we call? Who can we write to? What actions can we take? Help, help, help. I agree with your question completely. And I think you ought to write to your congressman. I think you ought to write letters to the editor. I think you should push in every lawful First Amendment protected way to have this trial televised. It will never have legitimacy unless it's televised. Nobody is going to believe what they see on CNN, MSNBC, and the New York Times. No rational person, at least, is going to believe it. They're going to want to see it with their own eyes. And so I'm hoping that this and other shows, and this is something that I think everybody can agree to. I don't even know whether Trump wants it to be televised. Maybe he doesn't want it to be televised. I don't care. I'm not doing it for him. I'm advocating it because I think it's best for the American public and for the Constitution. Okay, last question. I have a house full of photographs. My walls are vertical. Question: how do you secure these photographs to what is obviously a wall on an angle? Here, take a look. This is my life on my slanty wall. This is my study on Martha's Vineyard. It was originally an attic, just really essentially crawl space. But my wonderful wife, who wanted to get rid of me from being at the dining room table, which has not succeeded completely, but she organized this study, and it has a slanting wall because it's part of the outside roof. And I got a guy to come in. And he was able to put all those pictures up. And these pictures, represent my life from the time I was a kid until recently. And so far, none of them have fallen down. So there's a few little spots up there that still are empty. Maybe I'll put a few more up there, but I can't do it. I need, a real guy with a hammer and a nail and a measure to do it. So thanks for noticing the walls here. This wall, this sloping wall, is different, obviously, than the walls I have in New York, where I have all my memorabilia, my founding fathers, constitutional stuff. This is just mostly stuff about my background and my history. And maybe someday I'll take you on a tour through it. But in the meantime, enough for today, and looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow.